Special day. All right, so welcome to everyone joining on Facebook and YouTube. Um, we are looking forward to this time together, I'm sure, to unpack this understanding of the deeper truths of reality, the universe, ourselves. We are going to be looking at the symbols of reality this morning. So symbols are what we're using or what I'm using right now to communicate. And so we are recognizing as we progress on this path of awakening that symbols are pointers at best. Like Buddha said, my teaching is a finger pointing to the moon. The moon is the symbol of the enlightened mind, yeah? And so the teaching can only bring you to the direction in which to look. Then you must experience the truth for yourself. You have to go through the door of the symbol. That's exactly what Carl Jung would define a symbol as. He said, a symbol has a foot in two worlds. A symbol has a foot in the world of immanence, the world of relativity, so that we have access to the realm of transcendence, or the absolute. And so a symbol is like a bridge. So it can bring the mind from the relative to the absolute, from the many to the one. But what often happens, as we've seen throughout history, is that symbols can become rigid, they can become completely literal, and as a result of that, we become identified in these ossified symbols. And then the symbols themselves are supposedly the reality. So my book, my God, my group. Although all symbols, they can then become the absolute rather than the relative. They can become the end rather than the means. And so that can lead to a lot of difficulty. And not even just within the religious sphere, but of course within the political sphere, as we've been seeing. Our group, our symbol, our name, our ideology, all symbols at best. But they can become mishandled, misused, misappropriated, and weaponized. And as a result of that, we become stuck within the relative. We become stuck within the limited. And our nature, of course, is to live in the transcendent. That's our truest, deepest understanding of who we are. And so if we stay within the relative and frozen within our symbol systems, we are enslaved, essentially. And so the idea of a liberation teaching is to use symbols, but not be used by them, to bring them into the employment of the birth of the spirit or the birth of the transcendent awareness. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today. Now, to kick things off, we'll open with the Tao Te Ching. And if you're familiar with the Tao, the first chapter in the Tao goes like this. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. Right? In other words, the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. So there's a lot that we're going to be working with just in those few lines. So the point here to really zoom in on is free from desire, you realize the mystery. Well, what's the mystery? This entire creation is a symbol, right? And it can be used as a gateway or a portal into the transcendent. So we're going to be looking at the Heart Sutra of Buddhism today, because in that Heart Sutra, you may have heard this before, but the secret to the mystery, as Lao Tzu would put it, is that form is emptiness, right? Form is the transcendent, and the transcendent is form. And so when we begin to change our focal setting, we begin to actually see what's here, right? So this is another big aha as we begin to mature on the spiritual path, that we, as we often say here on a Sunday morning, we're swimming in the truth, right? We're just like the fish that are saying, well, what is this thing called water? And the only reason why we don't realize this water that we're swimming in is because our focal setting is off. And as Lao Tzu just said, when we operate with desire, we skew what is here. Desire for selfishness, desire for this independently existing ego body is what skews the wholeness from our perception. So as we will see, when you change your focal setting, you will realize the truth of the matter is right here, right now. You've never left it, you are it. But it's the way that we've been looking at things that has us thinking we are something other, and that heaven is not here, right? There's that beautiful saying in A Course in Miracles, heaven is here, there is nowhere else. Heaven is now, there is no other time. What is the Course driving at? Well, the here and the now is heaven. It's the reality of God's existence, of the Tao, of Buddha mind. Well, why aren't we seeing it? Our focal setting is off. Now, the Chinese and the Japanese, later influenced by the Chinese, they put this into their art. So if you ever look at ink painting, Chinese ink painting or Japanese ink painting, this is being beautifully portrayed here. So the idea that emptiness or empty space is the way that we actually can begin to interface with the great mystery. That space, like what's more abundant than space? So if you were to look right now, you see space as kind of offsetting the different objects in the room. But if you were to actually zoom in on your own body and begin to tunnel into your own body, you would see that this empty space is just as prevalent and pronounced within every layer of every scale of your physical body, within the chairs, within the floor. And if you were to zoom out into the macrocosm, you would realize that the galaxies become these little pinpoints of light in this vast space. So there's nothing more abundant and more ubiquitous than space. And that's why Jesus will say in A Course in Miracles, you see something where nothing is, and you see nothing where everything is. And that's what we're doing. Our focal setting is off. We actually think there's only this empty space to have us focus on the things in the room and the people in the room and the bodies in the room. That's when we're living with the focal setting of desire. It's a very limited perception. And we think that we are to interact only with objects because we're an object. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. You're empty space. You're the all. You're vast consciousness. You're the primal awareness, experiencing itself within this limiting of the mind-body illusion. But you're not that. It's just an aspect that you can play with. This is what these great teachers and teachings have been saying for millennia. So free from desire, you realize the mystery. And that's what Buddha's noble truths had instructed us to see too, where he's saying life is unsatisfactory, right? That's the first noble truth. Life is unsatisfactory because we are living with craving. We are craving to experience what the body ego wants. And then he says the only way out of this suffering or dissatisfying life is to realize the nirodha, that's the third noble truth, the emptiness, the peace, the calm. And then when you come back into the ground of your being, you can relax and open up. And that begins to give you real satisfaction, because this quiescence is when all craving, all desire, all seeking, all hunger, all thirst comes to rest. Like the rushing rivers going into the sea, everything becomes full. Everything becomes quiet. See, we're only craving, we're only anxious because we lack. All of our concern is to fill the lack. Well, once the lack is full, there's no sound, there's no need, there's no seeking, there's no desire. And the counterintuitive teaching is you don't find that fulfillment out there in objects, because if you're trying to possess and enjoy and objectify objects, to own, possess, control, then you're reinforcing the flame of desire. You're actually feeding the flame of hunger and thirst and lust and acquisition and need. Right? So this is the counterintuitive truth of these teachings. When you actually can put everything to rest, you will realize that you are and have everything. And desire can cease, you can realize the mystery, and your body appearance will be luminous. You'll smile a lot more as a body because you're not misusing the world. And relationships will be enjoyable, will be fulfilling, because the need has gone, and now you can truly see who each other are. A little bit more from the Tao. Can you coax your mind from its wandering and keep to the original oneness? Can you let your body become supple as a newborn child's? Can you cleanse your inner vision until you see nothing but the light? Can you love people and lead them without imposing your will? Can you deal with the most vital matters by letting events take their course? Can you step back from your own mind and understand all things? Giving birth and nourishing, having without possessing, acting with no expectations, leading and not trying to control. This is the supreme virtue. So what Lao Tzu is getting at here is when you give up the identity of the separate ego and its desires and agendas, you come to rest in your deepest nature and you realize that you are the Tao. That the Tao is really the essence of who you are, your being itself, your consciousness itself, your bliss itself. Right? This is the great discovery of the great work. And when that takes place, then there is something that will naturally unfold as your actions, your speech, your thoughts, but it will come through you rather than from you. Right? This is giving up control. This is stepping back from your mind. Right? This is 101 meditation. You begin to watch your mind. You begin to watch your thoughts. You begin to watch your emotions. You're not that. You're not what's arising. You're the one witnessing what's arising. And as a result of being the witness and not what's witnessed, you must be still. You must be empty. How else can you perceive all things as arisings, whether they're very subtle or gross and physical? They're all arisings within your awareness. Your awareness is fundamentally empty and still. Now, empty not as in lacking, but empty of any individual limiting definition. Your awareness is. And everything that arises from your awareness. So your awareness is empty and full, right? But it's not anything. That's why enlightenment is not a thing. You can't find enlightenment. You are enlightened, but the focal setting is off. Right? This is what we're being taught. So in the Chinese and Japanese ink paintings, what we're seeing here is vast empty space, and then these misty forms like mountains and rivers and oceans and animals and people arising from this empty space. They're very misty. So you don't even know if they're arising or passing back into the ground when you look at these paintings. And when you look at a human being in a Chinese or Japanese ink painting, it's very small. You could barely see the sage in the painting. It's because what they're directing your focal setting to is the empty space. They want you to realize that Buddhism, Taoism, true yoga is you have to open up to what Helena Blavatsky calls the parent space. It's the first cause of all causes. Parent space. The great void. Shunyata. The father. The mother. Right? This is coming home. And it's right here, right now. There's nowhere else. There's no other time. Change your focal setting in your home. We join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner space that makes the house livable. We work with being, but non-being is what we use. So everything really is fundamentally empty space. And we are using symbols to bring into awareness the qualities of this empty space. But remember, the symbols are pointers. They are not what we really want, right? What we really want is to join with the essence of that person or what that thing represents. It's always an intangible. We want peace. We want satisfaction. We want joy. We want fulfillment. We want love. We want prosperity. Well, what are these things? Joy, peace, love, prosperity. They're intangibles. They're spiritual states. They're experiences that occur within the awareness. They're not things. They can be symbolized by things, but they're not things. Is an olive branch peace? No, it's a symbol of peace. Is the dollar bill valuable? No, it's a piece of paper. But it symbolizes value, and we give meaning to these symbols, but we get lost in them. We think they are what is symbolized. And so this is why we have to change our focal setting. Right? Now, we have a class going on right now, which if you're not part of it, you can't join it. It's already a closed door, but next time around, if I don't have your email and you want to get in on the Gnosticism class, you can join at the second round of things. But we've been going over some of the teachings of the Naj Hammadi library, and if you're in the class, you'll remember some of these things that we're going to bring out today. This is from the Gospel of Philip. And the Gospel of Philip is one of these Gnostic Gospels, the secret teachings of Jesus. And Philip says this about words and names. The names of worldly things are utterly deceptive, for they turn the heart from what is real to what is unreal. Whoever hears the word God thinks not of what is real, but rather of what is unreal. So also with the words Father, Son, Holy Spirit, life, light, resurrection, church, and all the rest, people do not think of what is real, but what is unreal. Though the words refer to what is real. The words that are heard belong to this world. Do not be deceived. If words belong to the eternal realm, they would never be pronounced in this world, nor would they designate worldly things. They would refer to what is in the eternal realm. So again, what Philip's bringing out here is that the real is often obscured by these words: God, church, resurrection. We get lost in the jungle of words. And he says, though, that these words, some of them anyway, can come from the truth as transmissions or revelations, right? This is something that's very important to get, that the truth shines into this world, and it will show up within Buddha Dharma or Christian teachings or Taoist teachings, Sufi teachings. These are symbols, but they come from a state of high realization. They're vehicles that can take you back across the ocean from one shore to the other, like we've been saying. So there are authentic symbol systems within the world, when used properly, can convey you to the truth. So he says here, truth brought forth names in the world for us, and no one can refer to truth without names. Truth is one and many, for our sakes, to teach us about the one in love through the many. So when we meet and we discuss teachings from A Course in Miracles, for instance, on a Monday night at 7:15 p.m. right here in the sanctuary, we are using symbols. In fact, what Jesus will say in A Course in Miracles, he says words are symbols of symbols. They're twice removed from reality. So we are thinking certain thoughts which are symbolic of what can't be thought. We put that into thought, and then the thoughts are then communicated through the symbols of words. But we are using these symbols of symbols to bring us to accurate thoughts and then into an accurate experience, right? So the only way we can travel from the word to the thought to the experience of the transcendent is we have to give up desire as the ego. This is very important. Selfishness, in whatever form it's arising, the me, the mine, I need, I want, to get, to own, to control, to possess, we will never find the truth because we will misuse the symbols. And we don't want the truth because our desires would be evaporated. And so we're making these choices to substitute truth for our desires in hopes that we would find the being, the consciousness, and the bliss in merely chewing on the husks of the symbols. Right? This is what the Kabbalists will call this world. They say this is the world of klipot. This is the world of husks. There's really nothing here. There's no nutrients here. These are only symbols at best, shells, empty shells. But when seen clearly, without desire, they can convey back into the truth. And so that's why selfishness will block us, but compassionate living opens us up to the mystery. Right? It opens us up to the illuminated heart. And this is where we come into the teachings of the Heart Sutra, right? So in Buddhism, probably the best summation of the entire Buddhist canon of teachings is within what is called the Mahaprajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra, the great wisdom of the Heart Sutra, right? And what prajna, paramita, means, this transcending wisdom, is what we've been talking about. It is a wisdom that starts within the realm of names and forms, but it opens up the names and forms like a portal, and that wisdom is like a vehicle that takes you through into the heart, the hridaya of the Buddha, which is beyond name and form, beyond thought and speech, beyond the limitations of anything, back into the heart of this great empty space of pure being. So the way into this heart is through compassion. So that's why the beginning of the Heart Sutra is speaking about the bodhisattva of compassion. So it begins, Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, doing deep prajna paramita, clearly saw that the 5 skandhas are shunyata, thus transcending misfortune and suffering. So the prajna paramita is the great wisdom that sees beyond the forms. The 5 skandhas in Buddhism are your form, right? The rupa skandha is your form. And that form can be forms of thoughts, forms of emotions, or forms of bodies, forms of this world, right? Rupa skandha. Then you also have your perceptions, you have your feelings, and you have your volitional will. These are all the 5 skandhas. And what that sutra just said is your volition, your thoughts, your feelings, your consciousness, your form are all empty space. When you realize that everything that you think is tangible, solid, fixed, limited, is actually shunyata. It's open. It's free. You're changing your focal setting. You're beginning to take your focus onto space. This is meditation. You're stilling. You're relaxing. You're releasing the charge. You're spreading out. Everything becomes shunyata. Everything is empty. What a relief. Thus transcending misfortune and suffering. You're home. Heaven is here. There is nowhere else. Heaven is now. There is no other time. And then it goes on. Now Shariputra was the wisest of the Buddha's disciples. And in the earlier school of Buddhism, the Theravadan school, Shariputra is the star. But in the Mahayana school of Buddhism that came after the Theravadan school, Shariputra is the fall guy for the limited wisdom that the Mahayana school thought of in the earlier teachings of the Theravadan, because they were only focused on themselves and getting out and leaving the world for nirvana. And the Mahayanas are saying, no, you don't have to leave the world. Everything is here. Heaven is here. So Shariputra is the fall guy. And so Buddha's saying to Shariputra, Shariputra, form is no other than shunyata. Shunyata is no other than form. Form is exactly shunyata. Shunyata, exactly form. Right? There's your rupa skandha. All these forms, your form, my form, your memories of form, shunyata. Then he goes on, feeling, thought, volition, and consciousness are likewise like this. Gone. But that's the end of the sutra. We'll save that for later. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Right here. Changing your focal setting. Right? Feelings, thoughts, volition, and consciousness are likewise like this. O Shariputra, remember, Dharma is fundamentally shunyata. Dharma is the teaching. Dharma is the words and thoughts of the Buddha, or the words and thoughts of the Christos or the Christ, the words and thoughts of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our rabbi, the words and thoughts of Lao Tzu, the words and thoughts of Muhammad, shunyata. Dharma is fundamentally shunyata. No birth, no death. Nothing is defiled. Nothing is pure. Nothing can increase. Nothing can decrease. Hence in shunyata, no form, no feeling, no thought, no volition, no consciousness, no ignorance, and no end to ignorance. No old age and death, and no end to old age and death. No suffering, no craving, no extinction, no path, no wisdom, no attainment. Indeed, there is nothing to be attained. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas rely on prajna paramita and therefore reach the most supreme enlightenment. Therefore, no prajna paramita is the greatest teaching, the brightest teaching, the highest teaching. It completely clears all suffering. This is the truth, not a lie. So set forth this prajna paramita, set forth this teaching, and realize gate parasam gate bodhi swaha. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Enlightened mind. Here it is. This is the teaching. This is the essence. This is the coming home. Nothing to seek, nothing to get, nothing to want. No birth, no death. These are symbols. Pierce through the symbols. Pierce through your thoughts. Pierce through your fears. They're all empty. Shunyata. Shunyata. What do you do with that? You just have to sit there. And you turn your attention, your focal setting, back onto your awareness. Everything that's arising is empty space. And you can relax. Only the relaxed, quiet mind can realize it's already enlightened. What does desire do? It heats you up. It rattles you with anxiety and craving and wanting and yearning and longing. And what happens? Heaven ain't here. Heaven ain't now. You're out. You're outside of the Garden of Eden. You've taken the fruit of duality. Now it's me and other objects. I'm not the empty space. I'm frozen as an object in a universe of objects, and I'm craving for the fulfillment of my true being. But because I'm so distorted and I have this vision that is clouded, I think that I'm the body, and therefore by getting things for the body, I'll find the bliss of my being. How's that going? Impossible. Can't do it. It'll drive us mad. And it does. So this is why you even get this in the more nuanced readings of the book of Genesis, when Adam and Eve take that fruit and they eat it and they come out of the oneness, the unity of the garden. And it says that they immediately felt shame and they hid themselves, right? And the word play there that the rabbis like to use is, the word can also mean they froze, they congealed, they solidified. And as the Talmud said, when Adam was first created, that consciousness that is Adam saw from one end of the universe to the other. This is in the Talmud. Vast awareness. But when Adam took the fruit, that experience of being the vast became frozen, congealed, and solidified, and outside of the unity. Now living within the husks, the klipot, the etz hamavet, the tree of death, right? Not the tree of life, the tree of death, right? All we have to do is change our focal setting. It ain't that tragic. But when we are intoxicated and gripped on me and mine and what I want and what I've yet to conquer and consume, we can't hear it. It actually disturbs us. It's a problem for us, this truth. Right? Gloria Steinem, even though a CIA asset, once said, The truth will set you free right after it pisses you off. So here's a little bit from Lesson 184 in A Course in Miracles. The name of God is my inheritance. He says, you live by symbols. You have made up names for everything you see. Each one becomes a separate entity, identified by its own name. By this you carve it out of unity. By this you designate its special attributes and set it off from other things by emphasizing space surrounding it. This space you lay between all things, to which you give a different name. All happenings in terms of place and time, all bodies which are greeted with a name. This space you see as setting off all things from one another is the means by which the world's perception is achieved. So listen to this now. You see something where nothing is, and you see as well nothing where there's unity. Change your focal setting. We are so conditioned and habitualized to see the form as something. And what this teaching and all the higher teachings, like we just saw in the Heart Sutra, is this form is nothing. It's empty space when clearly seen. But if we have desires and distortions within our perception, our focal setting is off, we will think it's something, and where there's unity, we won't even see anything. That's why meditation is calming down and withdrawing your fixation on form, whether it's the forms of your thoughts, the forms of your feelings, the forms of your bodily sensations, the forms of your memory, the forms of your story. Taking the fixation off of the subtle and gross forms and putting it onto the empty or open state of your awareness. There's nothing more immediate than your awareness, right? Who just heard that? How did you hear that? What's the first thing you have to have in order to hear? I must be aware. Awareness is your ground. What's the nature of your ground? What's the nature of you? Empty, open, vast. And what's beautiful is it's unity, because the one listening and the one speaking both come from the same ground of awareness. I'm aware of speaking, you're aware of hearing. But that awareness is what unites us. That's how we can communicate. That's why these symbols can land and we can have this quantum entanglement. Because there's the underlying essence of the unity that never changes. We see something where nothing is. This is going to change. That's going to be worm food. But who am I joining with? I'm not joining with the ephemeral form. I'm joining with the one who's awake, who's aware, who may call himself by a name, but he's not that name. Heaven is here. Do we want it? So he says, a space between all things and between you and all things. Thus do you think that you are given life in separation. By this split, you think you are established as a unity, which functions with an independent will. What are these names by which the world becomes a series of discrete events, of things ununified, of bodies kept apart and holding bits of mind as separate awarenesses? You gave these names to them, establishing perception as you wished to have perception be. The nameless things were given names, and thus reality was given them as well. For what is named is given meaning and will then be seen as meaningful. So this is the way reality is made by partial vision. So he says, that's why we need intervals each day. This is what he's going to get to now. This is what you need are intervals each day in which the learning of the world becomes a transitory phase, that you can release it. You can release your conditioned mind. You can release your story. You can release your fixation on form and identity. You have to do this every day, he says, in order to feel your freedom, your innate truth. Thus, what you need are intervals each day in which the learning of the world becomes a transitory phase, a prison house from which you go into the sunlight and forget the darkness. Right? The sunlight of your own awareness. The immediacy of this instant, stripped of all of the illusions. Here you understand the word, the name which God has given you, the one identity which all things share, the one acknowledgement of what is true. Right? Buddha mind. And then step back to darkness, not because you think it real, but only to proclaim its unreality in terms which still have meaning in the world, which darkness rules. So in other words, you soak in the emptiness of pure being. You are infused with this higher light, this higher truth, this higher love. And then you return to the darkness and use symbols to liberate those that want to be liberated. Those that want to see beyond the shadows and the appearances on the wall. Use all the little names and symbols which delineate the world of darkness, yet accept them not as your reality. The Holy Spirit uses all of them, but he does not forget creation has one name, one meaning, and a single source, which unifies all things within itself. Use all the names the world bestows on them, but for convenience. Yet do not forget they share the name of God with you. God has no name, and yet his name becomes the final lesson, that all things are one, and at this single lesson learning ends. All names are unified. All space is filled with truth's reflection. So our last stop is sharing these wonderful ideas of Tartang Tulku, a Tibetan master that born and raised in Tibet and came over in the 1960s. And he, even though he's a master of the Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, he put the highest essence of these teachings into a form that Westerners can, use without all of the cultural trappings. And so he wrote a series of books under the idea of the time-space knowledge series, right? So TSK, if you're interested. This is volume 1 of the Time, Space, and Knowledge series. And just going to share a few ideas here. And in volume 1, at the very beginning, he's laying out this truth of space, right? Remember, the name of God is one, and it infuses all of space with presence. This is how we can begin to experience God, not as a form, but as a presence that fills all space. Truth is presence. Love is presence. It's all here now in the space. But we have to change our focal setting. It's like changing the dial on the radio. The internet is here. You can watch this service on Facebook if you signed onto the website and had that code, that frequency, to pick it up on your device. Well, all truth is here. All love is here. All bliss is here. But if you're not tuned to it, it's empty. There's nothing here. Only bodies and chairs and floors and buildings. How wonderful will it be when we go beyond the concepts and experience this? Not stare at the finger pointing to the moon, but become the moon. Dial it in. Sit, be still, relax, open up. Feel the empty space permeating the atoms of your being, the molecules and cells of your being. Feel the empty space permeating the organs of your being, the blood of your being, the bones of your being. Feel the empty space permeating the thoughts and the space in which the thoughts are arising. Feel the empty space permeating your feelings and your listening and your seeing. Feel the empty space everywhere, at every level, on every scale. Shunyata. Your head blows off. The top of your head blows off. You literally merge with the space. And when your heart is pure, when you're not living by selfish desire, but compassion, to bring life to others, to bring truth to others, the downloads will come. You'll pick up the frequency because you're in sympathetic resonance with the Buddha Dharma, with the Christ gospel, with the Torah or the light of the Torah, right? You pick it up. It becomes broadcast through you. But you have to become presence. You have to be still and allow these limitations to dissolve. They're really empty space now. You're just letting them be what they are. You're not misusing them for your desires and your agenda. Even your desires and agenda are empty space. Is this clear? So here's Tartang Toku. Throughout history, we have been maintaining a fixed and limiting focal setting without even being aware of doing so. Yet although our familiar world seems to depend upon this setting, if we become able to change the setting, fantastic new knowledge and appreciation of life can be gained. The idea of discovering new spaces may seem at first to be a purely abstract intellectual endeavor, but in fact, it is rooted in the deeply felt need to find an alternative to the sense of restriction and confinement which each of us experiences in our daily lives. This feeling of lack of space, whether on a personal, psychological level or an interpersonal, sociological level, has led to experience of confusion, conflict, imbalance, and general negativity within modern society. If we employ new focal settings and see the way they work, we can come to an overall understanding which is a kind of space. Moreover, this understanding, which is also space, explains, expresses, and is everything. That's higher knowledge. That's God's vision. Though it may seem to go against our ordinary worldview, an understanding or vision can itself be the revealing basis of all reality. And even an attention to our ordinary space may help to expose this comprehensive space vision on being based on what is called great space. And then finally here, the coexistence of space and objects is rendered even more suggestive by the fact that we can change our focal setting and find space where before we saw objects, and even objects where we saw space. So get what he's saying here. This higher understanding, this higher vision, which is also space, can see the space within all objects, right? As we were saying, your thoughts, your feelings, your body, everything becomes empty space. You ever see those shows, like when they talk about physics, and the physicist is in the middle of a football field, and he's holding an orange, and he's like, well, this would be the nucleus in the atom. And then at the very top of the stadium, and those upper bleachers would be the first orbital level of the electron. So within the atom, vast space. And when the quantum physicists drill down into the nucleus or drill down into the electron, even more space. In fact, when they look at the electron, it's not even physical. It's blipping in and out of the void or shunyata. It doesn't even occupy space as a physical object. And that's what everything is made of. It's all blipping. It's all light. It's all this divine space. When we identify as these constricted forms, our focal setting is literally insane. Because we are misperceiving everything. We are this child of God. We are this divine space. Meditate, relax, let go, open up. Because we are white-knuckling our lives. And as we keep looking at the events of the world, our knuckles get whiter, right? It's like we're on a roller coaster. And how are you going to feel who you are when you're like this? That's fear. That's the purpose of the ego. The ego wants to survive. The ego's purpose, as it says in A Course in Miracles, is fear. And as soon as you identify as the separate self, you will feel anxiety. Because that's not who you are. And you're taking yourself out of the Garden of Eden, out of the unity consciousness. And therefore you're going to feel the repercussion or the impact of that. The only thing the ego can offer you then is lust. You can then find heaven through the body. But you never do. It's a seeking and never finding. So the white knuckling, the only alternative that will release you is to relax. Not take everything so seriously, even things that are tragic and devastating that are going on in your life right now. You can change your focal setting. You can. Be still. Finally, these symbol-laden presentations of our reality can be put to use. If we consider existence with the perception of our mind's eye, tracking it within and without, to and from, it seems that we have no choice but to consider a kind of space as somehow fundamental. What he's meaning here is, think about where your body and all bodies come from. Nowhere. Empty space. They abide for a little while, and they're going back into empty space. Yes? Everything dissolves. The chairs will dissolve. This rug, eventually, even though it's so synthetic, will dissolve. This planet will dissolve. This universe will dissolve. Everything dissolves back into empty space. He's saying, go through that contemplation in your mind's eye. That way you can detach from all forms. The deeper we investigate, the stronger this tendency becomes. The source and resting point of all existence appears to be space. We can leave logical analyses aside for the moment and continue to contemplate the comings and goings of things in our mind's eye. It almost seems that an object which is here has appeared from a past condition of empty space, needs that space to be here, and gives way to a future condition of, again, empty space, non-existence. It looks like space is projecting into space. That is all. Even what seems to fill up the space as a present tense existing object is also space. You following? So, this is the slogan. Space is projecting space into space. This is what the children of God do. We make these landscapes and worlds based within light, but we can never get out of what these essentially are. They are infinite presence, temporarily manifesting as light and life forms, but they are fundamentally infinite presence or divine space, projecting space into space. Space projecting space into space. Do we want to hear this? Not if you're an ego. Not if you have desire. Not if you're choosing to be the body in this moment. This will piss you off. On some level, you might not say you're being pissed off. You might just be distracted. You might just be confused or tired. But this is the way the distortion shows up. Let's press snooze on this message, please. Where's the blue bag? Get that blue bag around. Thank you, Ray. Anybody have anything they want to share? Anybody want to be the space projecting more space into the space using symbols? All right. And we just charge this with the intention that whatever form this may take, it has the frequency of liberation, that all beings may come to true happiness and true freedom. And so it is. Oh, remember not to stand up because the camera cuts me off. Let's seal the deal. Just a quick reminder, no class tomorrow night. Okay, we have a holiday, so no Course in Miracles group tomorrow. And so we just come back into the state of pure awareness, resting within the heart space. And from this place of silent awareness, we remember that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. So it is. Have a great day, everybody. Happy holiday. Thank you, John. Thank you.